Welcome to the Kill the Lion podcast. It's your host, Cody Clarke. We got a great one for you today. Calob Robinson is here. Awesome filmmaker. You can watch his films on YouTube. Living with Trevor. Not So Amazing. Really funny movies. Really nice guy. Can't wait to talk to him. If you like the show, by the way, support us. $2 per month. That's all it takes. KillTheLionFilms.com. You're supporting not just the show, you're supporting the studio too. And now, Calob Robinson. Calob, good to have you on.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I really enjoy your films. I've seen Living with Trevor. I've seen Not So Amazing. So I've seen your two feature films. I've been recommending them a lot on Twitter and whatnot. I think they're really fun movies. They're very funny, and you're doing something a bit differently than I'm doing, a bunch of my friends are doing. I feel like you're tapping into a much larger budget traditionally. You're doing these kind of like big studio comedies, but with your friends, you know, in your actual locale. It's a really cool thing that you're doing. Am I like describing what you're going for, where you're trying to do these like kind of broad, very, very funny comedies that just kind of like you usually go to a movie theater to see, but like you're doing it just like you and your friends, so it's a bit more authentic and whatnot? Am I in the right direction?
You're definitely in the right direction. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of influence from bigger studio comedies because that's kind of what I grew up on, I guess. But I guess I've grown up on that style of storytelling, so in a way it's just second nature for me to kind of go in that direction with it. But yeah, I mean, I guess my goal is to take the studio comedy format and kind of, by the end of my films, put it on its head a little bit, like with Living with Trevor and Not So. Both movies, towards the end, kind of take a slightly more dramatic turn than I feel like most studio comedies go in. But for the most part, that's pretty much what I'm going for.
Yeah, in that way, it kind of reminds me of like the Jody Hill stuff, like Foot Fist Way or Observe and Report or Eastbound and Down. That kind of like balance between, you know, very, very funny stuff, but also a little bit darker here and there, a little bit more sensitive here and there. Was that an influence? Like maybe even like some of the Judd Apatow stuff. What stuff influences you directly as far as the kind of movies you make?
Well, okay, so the ones you just named off outside of Judd Apatow, I haven't even heard of, so I need to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh man, dude, you are gonna love Jody Hill so much. He is so up your alley. You guys are gonna be best friends. I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but you know, it would be nice. In a perfect world, you and Jody Hill are mutually appreciating each other and all that. Observe and Report, absolutely, you need to see like tomorrow. It's so up your alley.
Okay. I have heard of that. I have heard of that movie because that came out like the same year as Paul Blart. So that was like the other mall cop movie or whatever.
Yeah, this was Observe and Report was like the dark, twisted mall cop movie. It was everything that Paul Blart wasn't, you know. It was something else entirely. But please tell me about what your influences are.
Okay, yeah. Well, definitely Judd Apatow. Like you said, that's one of the bigger ones. I think something that Judd Apatow and me have in common actually is the fact that like we have a really hard time managing our run times.
Oh yeah, I was gonna bring that up. We'll get to that for sure.
Yeah. And then the other ones, like, goes without saying, but early Kevin Smith is an influence on me in the sense of just like grabbing a camera and making a movie with what you have. I mean, I guess Clarke's Kevin Smith would be what I'm going for with that. But the other ones, early James Gunn is another one. Super was a massive influence on Not So Amazing. And then I guess my main influence, and these guys I would consider kind of like the original OG folk filmmakers. They're not in that area anymore, but like the Duplass brothers are a massive influence on me and my directing style and the way I approach making movies. So I guess yeah, those are probably my main influences. I'm influenced by everything I see though, so
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like people will ask my influences specifically, and a lot of the times I'm not necessarily influenced by things that I'm similar to. You know, I'll be grabbing from pretty much anything that just kind of I see some of myself in or whatever. But let's talk about the run times real quick because you know we touched on it when we start talking about Apatow, you make some very long comedies. You know, traditionally you think of a comedy as maybe 80 minutes, 90 minutes. You venture into the 2 hour plus territory. Do you like longer comedies just as a viewer? Do you just find that your films are best suited for longer run times? I can tell you as a person watching your films, I've never felt the runtime, so to speak, as I am watching it. I'm not like looking at my watch or anything, you know. It's very funny throughout and all that, but you know, it's an unusual choice for a comedy for sure.
yeah, I mean, I definitely like longer movies in general. I'm a big fan of Judd Apatow, so like I like his longer form comedies. Funny People is like damn near 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I love that movie. So yeah, I mean, I like longer movies, and I think on a subconscious level that just happens with my movies. Both of my like Living with Trevor and Not So Amazing both had 3 hour plus rough cuts, so. I make these movies and I'm like, this one's gonna be like 2 hours hopefully, and then I'm sitting with the rough cut and I just like I don't know how I'm gonna get it down or whatever, and I guess that's not necessarily like my goal in making those movies, but like I've always had the mindset of runtime is kind of irrelevant, pacing is what truly matters. So like as long as the movie flows well and you aren't looking at your watch, I'm pretty sure you can make a movie almost any length as long as it's not like 8 hours long.
Yeah, pace is definitely everything. I mean, I've watched 3 minute movies that feel like 3 hours, and I've watched 3 hour movies that feel like 3 minutes. You know, it's about how you use the time for sure, and that's more important than anything. Absolutely. So you know, you make your films. These are hometown films. You're in Washington, right? You're in a small town in Washington.
Yeah, Little Yakima.
Little Yakima, Washington, which is a place I had not heard of before your films, but now it's like it feels like there's a lot of creative juice going on in that area. You've got you know you're making movies, the people in your movies are making movies. Everybody's making some stuff. How are you received by your locale? Are they do they roll their eyes when they see you like shooting in the street? Are they like embracing you? You know, I don't know what the response is like. So tell me about that.
Well, for Living with Trevor, we didn't shoot a ton of stuff outside of like my mom's house and the other few locations we had. But like for Not So, obviously, a good chunk of that movie is us running around downtown Yakima doing some pretty ridiculous stuff. So I have a lot. I could tell a lot of stories from that. But like overall, I think people just kind of go about their business. We definitely had a bunch of run-ins with like cops and stuff, but in terms of just like locals and civilians walking around while we're shooting, there wasn't a ton of like, what are you guys doing type of thing. They just, I don't know, they saw someone holding a camera and someone in a Spider-Man suit and just kind of went about their day. In terms of like just how people see our movies here, honestly, I don't think a lot of people in Yakima know about us necessarily. We haven't really branched out in that way yet, but I'm hoping to do that in the future. There's a local film festival here that isn't really like it's basically just a screening place for locally made short films and stuff, and I'm considering just messaging them and being like, "Hey, we actually have some features that we shot here. Maybe you could screen those or whatever." And so yeah, I'm hoping we can like kind of be heard in Yakima a little bit more here soon, because quite frankly, as far as I know, like me, Gage, Micah are like the only people making feature films in Yakima. So
It seems like there's a lot of talent though. Like it seems like you never have any shortage of interesting people to put in your movies. Is it all just like friends of friends? Do you put out any casting notices? How have you found people?
For Living with Trevor, it was friends of friends, friends and family, stuff like that. But for Not So, much bigger cast. So we ended up putting flyers all over Yakima. We made a little video, basically just going, hey, if you want to be in a movie shot here in Yakima, feature film comedy, let us know. And then we boosted that post on Facebook. And then I think we posted on Craigslist also. And yeah, so that's kind of how we built up our cast for Not So, and I'm pretty sure that's probably the route I'm going to go going forward for my next features and stuff. So,
Did you have to pick from a lot of people, or what was the pool like? Because you wonder about places like Yakima as compared to like New York City. I feel like it's kind of a buyer's market for me. Like as far as like finding people, there's no shortage here. What's it like out there?
it's definitely more scarce, but we did for the male characters, we got a lot of people. For the female characters, not as much, but we still had some choices we had to make. I think overall we probably had like 20 people audition, and then the rest we filled in with just friends of friends and stuff like that. Actually, I mean, I want to shout this guy out because he deserves a lot more credit than he's been getting for Not So. My producer and really close friend Nathan, he like is our casting guy. He knows everybody in Yakima, and like whenever a shoot would be coming up where we're like, we have this big like scene in a city where we need some extras in the background, or we need a retail worker person in the scene or whatever, like Nathan would have that person locked and ready to go within like 20 minutes from me asking. So Nathan is a casting genie in Yakima. He knows everybody.
That's great, and he's also a very funny performer too. He was very funny and not so amazing. So I mean, that's pretty rare. Somebody with that much chops as an actor and comedian, as far as like that's concerned, and also just a great producer. That's a dream.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and him and I are working on some like the next features we're going to be doing together also. So I'm very excited for all of that. But yeah, like that's a thing that isn't really talked about with folk filmmaking is like, and for good reason. There isn't a lot of producing going on, I feel like, with a lot of folk filmmaking, but like with my movies there definitely is, and it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
So yeah, you've been using the term folk filmmaking. How did you first come across that kind of movement? And do you identify as a folk filmmaker? What do you term yourself? You're not many people. You are one person. And how did you come across the movement, so to speak?
So for the longest time, I just called it no budget filmmaking, and that's pretty much what I call it. But like folk filmmaking is just a cooler name, I feel like. And yeah, so we met Dan Lotz pretty fast after Not So Amazing was released, and pre Not So Amazing being released, we were like pretty sure that like we were like one of maybe like 10 people making movies on YouTube that are like feature length. And then we came across Chlorine and watched it, and then we watched Dan Lotz's video about folk filmmaking and realized he had this entire playlist on his channel that had like just a ton of feature length YouTube movies. So Nathan and I started going through all of those, and yeah, I guess the term just really caught on for us, and we realized like this is what we're doing. We're folk filmmakers. So yeah, I mean, I kind of just use every term. I like yours too, truly independent features. So yeah, I kind of just use whatever comes to my mouth at the time of speaking.
Yeah, it's great to be like kind of interchangeable with it, like how you call them movies, you call them films, you call it cinema. It's always good to have multiple terms. So you're not just a director, you're also an actor. You starred in Not So Amazing. You starred in that movie, dressed in a superhero costume. How hot was it in that costume, and were you taking it off while you were directing? And was it just something that you were wearing all the time, kind of like Sacha Baron Cohen and Borat? Like, What was the extent of you in this costume while you were filming, and was it miserable? What was it like?
So like shooting Not So took like almost 2 years. So there were times where the warmth of the suit was like very helpful. Like for example, our big climax at the end of the movie, it was like below zero that entire shoot. So like I was actually one of the only people that was probably bundled up that night. But then there were times while we were shooting in the summer where it was absolutely miserable and super hot because the way I designed that suit, there's probably 3 or 4 layers on every part of my body. So like, it's a very, very hot suit when you're in the heat and a very, very warm suit when you're in the cold. So, and yeah, I wore it while I was directing. I didn't, there wasn't really any opportunity for me to go take it off because all of the locations we were shooting at weren't ours. We didn't have permission to be shooting there. So yeah, I didn't have like full control over those sets. So it was very much like I shot my angle and then I just grab the camera and shoot the other angles in the suit. I mean, I took the mask off during those portions, but it was on me for a majority of the movie. Whenever there was a Spider-Man scene, it was on me for the entire shoot.
I think that speaks to, how hard you work on these films. I should mention, like, these films are there's something very professional about them. You guys are taking this very seriously, even though a lot of it is like you and your friends making each other laugh and doing funny, silly things. There's a certain professionalism that, myself as a filmmaker, I can spot that a mile away when I see it. And when I see it, I get really excited that somebody else is, working as hard as I am and all that. You take this very seriously. How serious are the sets? Is there a lot of joking around, and how do you keep track of especially in a very long movie like you make, how do you keep track of making sure you get everything and whatnot? Because it definitely comes through that you take it seriously.
I definitely take it very seriously. I want my actors to be able to do kind of the opposite within a comedy. So like I try to allow the sets to be pretty laid back and chill to everyone outside of the camera guy, boom guy, director, that type of thing. So it's kind of a mix, but yeah, I definitely take it seriously. I plan out the schedule of every day. I aim for a certain amount of scenes shot per day, and I'm a shot list guy. I'm not really a storyboard guy, mostly because I enjoy finding shots on set. That's just something that I enjoy doing, and it creates a looser atmosphere that I like. So I guess I do take it seriously, but I'm not super strict. I like to allow basically anybody, like down to a boom operator. I want to allow anybody to have some form of feedback on takes and stuff. And yeah, I try my hardest to leave my ego at the door because if someone random on set has a better idea than me, I want to go with it. But yeah, I mean, me, Gage, Nathan, we all took it pretty seriously.
All right, so you worked with your brother on Living with Trevor. Was that your older brother that played Trevor, or younger brother? What's your relation there?
Oh yeah, so he's my middle brother. I have a brother that's even younger than him, but I'm the oldest of my family. Yeah, and like that entire movie came from that character that he just kind of came up with. We were like 15-year-old idiot teenagers, and Adam just had, yeah, his name's Adam. We just had this character that he created that we would mess around with casually. And as I was starting to get really passionate about filmmaking, it was a very easy, like, well, Adam's already got this little goofy character that he's come up with, so let's just make a movie about that. And yeah, but it's honestly kind of amazing how he is as a performer, because he's absolutely nothing like that character in any way, shape, or form. He goes from that really high pitched, ridiculous voice and all those mannerisms to like the chillest, almost stoned personality that he has. He doesn't smoke weed, but he definitely comes off like he does. He's very relaxed at all times, and it's really funny to see him go from Trevor to Adam and back and forth.
Yeah, he's an amazing performer. Comedy in general, people I feel like don't realize how much work goes into it. Whatever film you're making, you're working your ass off, whatever it is, even if it's like a silly comedy. And comedic performing, I feel like in general doesn't get enough love. Obviously, it doesn't get enough love with the Oscars or prestige kind of stuff like that. But I mean, he puts so much into that performance. He disappears into the role to the point where, like, when you're watching it and you don't, obviously, most people that watch it don't know him in person. I'm able to completely accept this character as, as real for the time that I'm watching the film. Now, people that know him, when they see him in Trevor, is it a bit weird for like people that know him to watch the movie?
Yeah, I think so. When the movie came out, there was definitely a lot of like what from Adam's friends and stuff. Like but nobody knew what we were really doing when we were making that movie. So when it came out, I think it took a lot of people off guard, particularly with his performance. But yeah, like even people who were just shooting it with us who knew Adam, when they came for the day that they were involved in, they were just like really surprised and taken back by everything that would come out of his mouth. It's a very stark contrast, and when we're shooting, it's Adam is not method whatsoever. It's like action. He's Trevor, cut. He's Adam. So it's pretty amusing.
Does he have any desire to do any other acting, or does he always kind of want to do Trevor if there's a camera on, or does he want to do more dramatic stuff? Because I feel like if you can do Trevor, you can do anything. You can do something a lot more dialed down. The world is his oyster as far as acting if he realizes it and wants to do that. What are his desires in that department?
I'm honestly not entirely sure. I do know, and this isn't an announcement of anything, but I do know that like if I ever did decide to bring back the Trevor character again, he's down to always do that. But in terms of other acting, I'm not entirely sure. He's going to school right now to become a counselor, so he's definitely not like pursuing it super seriously, but I definitely think he has the chops for it. And if I were to ever like write a movie with a role in it that was serious that I think Adam would work well on, I would definitely approach him for it.
Yeah, it might be interesting to even like put him opposite himself, where like, you have him as like his normal self and you have Trevor in a movie together. Just because like you said, he can switch it on and off. It might be something interesting to do in that department.
Yeah, it's something I would consider. I'm definitely open to bringing that character back. I mean, we brought him back for like a split second and Not So Amazing, so it's definitely not off the table.
So in your movies, you do something that a lot of other folk filmmakers on YouTube do, which is you use a lot of songs that, you don't necessarily legally have the rights to, but because of YouTube's lax policy, you can use those songs in your film on YouTube, no problem. What are your thoughts on doing that? Is that something that you're really into doing? Are you open to, doing stuff where like you compose or have somebody compose stuff so you can release stuff on like DVD and Blu-ray and put stuff out in other ways? What are your thoughts on that whole YouTube using whatever songs you want thing?
Yeah, so going forward, I'm done with that. I'm still going to use music. I want to try to get the rights to certain smaller independent songs that I really want to use in my next couple movies, but Not So was the last one in that era for me of just using whatever song I want. And I did that for Living with Trevor and Not So because I wanted to make my first couple features with the safety wheels on, I guess is the best term to use for that. I think it's very helpful when you're starting out to just make a feature film and not have to worry about all the businessy side of things and all of those like legal intricacies. I think it's a lot easier to just pull up Spotify and put in the songs that you want to put into your movie, and then down the road, once you've made a couple features like that, and that's kind of why I did it. I think you're more able to plan for using songs that you actually have the rights to. So it was just kind of like for my first couple features, I didn't really want to worry about that stuff, and I guess that's kind of just that's the answer. that's why I went in that direction. But I definitely want to be able to completely 100% own the rest of my movies going forward.
Yeah, my feelings are always, I just want to have every little bit of that movie be something that's mine that I can put out on DVD. I can do whatever I want with. I don't have to get any weird letters in the mail telling me I can't do what I'm doing or whatever. Would you ever do like recuts of Not So Amazing and Living with Trevor so that you could put them out on like DVD or Blu-ray? Is that something you would explore, like maybe, changing the songs or whatever you need to do? So we can get some nice physical copies.
Probably not the best answer, but honestly, probably not. Just because for me, those songs are so engraved into those experiences. I wish I could just like put them on Blu-ray and release them, but like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm also like not the biggest fan, at least for my own work, of like recutting movies or like I kind of just want the original what that movie was to exist and that just be the movie. I'm not at all against remastering them because Living with Trevor definitely could use some polishing down the road, and I'm definitely going to eventually remaster that movie. But like, yeah, I don't ever really plan on recutting those movies. And obviously my opinions could change. My opinions always change. I'm very ADD with that stuff, but for the time being, for right now, my opinion is yeah, I probably won't ever do that, but that's definitely the plan for every feature I make going forward. I'm going to make sure I have complete rights to it.
Would you ever do maybe a bootleg version then, or a kind of like wink wink version where like people can kind of, I don't know, maybe you send them like a blank DVD and some nice artwork, and you say, hey, if you want to put something on this, you might be able to. Wink wink. Would you consider doing something that's like a little gray area as far as legality? What are your plans there?
Yeah, I'm definitely considering that. Right now, I'm actually like highly considering it. I'm looking into like some loopholes that I could go around, and I'm not by any means a legal expert, so I'm not even sure if this would actually be like okay legally speaking, but I've considered like putting up a merch shop or something and making like 100 copies of Living with Trevor and 100 copies of Not So, and being like, hey, if you buy a shirt, I will just gift you a Blu-ray of the movie of your choice until we're out of them. So like I'm considering that. I don't know what route I would go through, what loops I would go through to get that done, but it's definitely something that's like in the plans for me eventually.
I would definitely recommend the tactic of doing professional DVD disc itself artwork, doing a box art, and then oops, there's nothing on the DVD. Oh, well, if you go online, maybe you can put something on that DVD if you would like. That would be my advice. I'm no legal expert, but I think you would be totally in the clear if you did something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's something I would highly consider also. I'm definitely not gonna like do anything until I'm pretty like 99% sure I can. So I'm gonna do my research and then go from there with that. But yeah, I definitely want some form of a like really high quality physical release to exist, whether that be just a case that someone burns or otherwise. I'm not sure yet, but I definitely I'm very pro physical media, and that is the downside to how I went about making my first two features. But yeah, I hope to have some kind of way to rectify that in the future.
So you mentioned Kevin Smith as an influence. He's a big merch guy, probably the biggest merch guy in indie film. I think early on Spike Lee was doing that too, but then he kind of wavered. And then Kevin Smith just kind of ran with it. But are we going to get like some not so amazing action figures? What can we dress up as your crappy Spider-Man costume for Halloween? How far do you want to go with it? You just want to limit yourself to t-shirts? Where are you going to go with it, you think?
I would love to release some not so amazing action figures. I'm not even sure how I would go about that, but like if I were to come across someone who knows how to make action figures, I would definitely like hit them up about it. As of right now, I think I'm just gonna put up like a T Public or something, which you can do shirts, mugs, posters. I definitely want to release all of our posters. That's a big one for me. But yeah, like for the time being, until I know how to do the other stuff, it'll probably just be shirts and stuff. But I am working on a merch shop like right now. It's a side project of mine that I'm doing this year. So there will definitely be Not So Amazing, Living with Trevor 7th merch coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm trying to do similar actually. We're both in the same boat as far as increasing our merch and all that. We'll definitely have to compare notes and whatnot as we go and all that. So Kevin Smith, you like the early stuff. You know, it's a weird thing to say because usually if you say like you were influenced by Kevin Smith, it's like, oh, it's Clerks and whatnot. But for me, when I made my film Ramekin, I was super influenced by Yoga Hosers, which I feel like I'm the only person to ever make a movie because of Yoga Hosers. Usually people are picking up the camera because of Clerks or Chasing Amy or whatnot. I like you know, kind of all of his stuff. You know, there's some stuff that I don't like as much as others, but you know, I like him as a filmmaker overall. Are you more into his early stuff? How do you feel about his body of work?
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of the early stuff. The farther you go down his filmography, the less interested I am overall. But like, I have immense respect for the guy, and I don't know. His newer stuff just isn't entirely my cup of tea. I guess is the way I would say it. They're not bad movies by any means. I don't actually believe in the concept of a bad movie. I'm a weirdo. I think all art is subjective and like it's all valid. But like, yeah, I'm definitely more of a Clerks, Chasing Amy. That's my like comfort zone with Kevin Smith. But I mean, I will always respect and love the dude for inspiring me to pick up a camera and make a movie.
Yeah, and are you a big Spider-Man fan as well? How much of Not So Amazing is just you in real life? Did you exaggerate that? Are you a huge like Spider-Man nerd? What's your relationship to Spider-Man?
I am a massive Spider-Man fan. He is without a question my favorite superhero. It's a character that I look up to a lot. I just love what that character stands for, and I always try to like live my life by that philosophy of like always doing the right thing no matter what, even if it's hard. And that's kind of what influenced the moral message of Not So is like, even if the situation is completely fucked and it's terrible, you still got to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think Sam is an exaggeration of me in a lot of ways. I don't jerk off to Spider-Man porn, but like there's definitely a lot of similarities also. I think Sam takes Spider-Man as seriously as I do. But yeah, Spider-Man is like my favorite thing ever. I love Spider-Man.
And what's your golden period of Spider-Man? Because I grew up with like the Raimi films; those will always be near and dear to me. I can't get into the newer stuff as much. I like the '90s cartoon growing up. What's your perfect Spider-Man?
So I mean, I obviously didn't grow up on this stuff, but I love the original Stan Lee, Steve Ditko run of the comics. I'm a pretty big fan overall of Brian Michael Bendis's run, the Ultimate Comic run of Spider-Man. In terms of movies, I find love in all of the adaptations to a degree. There's definitely ones that I prefer to others, but like I love the Raimi trilogy. I actually have a pretty big soft spot for the web movies. A lot of people hate those films, and I really like them a lot. Like the first one particularly is like definitely my cup of tea. And then I really like the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. I'm a little more like on Far From Home, but the first Tom Holland one I'm a pretty big fan of. But I don't know, it's a character that you can do a lot of different things with, and I mean, Not So I think is evidence of that. But yeah, so it's kind of hard for me to pick a favorite because like every single adaptation in its own way is a valid view of that character.
I was really big into the 1995 Fleer Ultra Spider-Man trading cards growing up. I collected those when those came out. That was like a huge thing when those came out. Are you aware of those? Do you have any of those? Because that's an amazing card set.
I actually am not. No, I've never even heard of those. But I also like wasn't big into cards when I was younger, so I probably just in general wouldn't have known about them. But that sounds awesome.
Dude, these cards are gorgeous. These are some of the best looking trading cards you will ever see in your life. You're going to go on eBay or you're going to look up some pictures and you're going to be like, oh my God, I need these from my collection. And I apologize in advance because you're gonna want them too bad and you're gonna sink all your next movie money into obsolete form of collecting. But they're really cool. It's all like, all the best artists that you would want to see draw Spider-Man. They do these gorgeous drawings of Spider-Man for the cards, and they're just incredible. I can't hype that set enough, and I hope that me hyping it right now doesn't like increase the price. It's really good stuff. It's you're gonna lose your mind. I'm definitely not overhyping it. They're gorgeous cards. What are your prized Spider-Man possessions? Do you have stuff that like is costs a pretty penny? Any rare comics? What's your Spider-Man collection stuff?
I don't have anything super rare that's worth a ton. I do have some like a couple comics from the Stanley Steve Ditko run. They're in pretty rough shape, so I'm sure they'd be worth like $5. But like, I have stuff. It's just not super rare, and it's not super like I wouldn't be able to make a lot of money off of it if I did ever want to like go and sell it. But I mean, I have all of the movies on like every form of physical media. I have a bunch of action figures. I have a bunch of comics, a lot of T-shirts and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely have stuff. I haven't gone into the realm yet of really like rare stuff because I put most of my money into my movies, so I don't really have a ton of money to spend on stuff like that. But one day I would like to have some of that stuff.
So how much did you put into Not So Amazing or Living with Trevor? What are your budgets like for these movies?
Living with Trevor costed more than Not So because I was buying all of my equipment. I think I probably spent somewhere around like 500, 600 on Living with Trevor just for all the equipment and stuff. Not So, honestly, probably in like the $150, $200 range because it was mostly just the suit, the prop guns. I did buy a better boom mic. But yeah, I try my hardest to not put a ton of money that I don't need to into the movies. But yeah, so like total under 1,000 for both of them.
You're a man after my own heart. I'm always encouraging people spend as little as possible making your movies and make a lot of them. Just keep cranking them out. I don't think I've spent more than $500 on a movie since my first film, which was when I had to buy equipment. So of course, the first film always costs the most. But in general, I've made movies for like $0. I've made movies for like $25. I've made movies for really small amounts of money, and nobody watching them is going to know the difference. They might think they know the difference, but they really don't. At the end of the day, you can get a lot of stuff for free. So I would assume when you're shooting your movies, you're not really ever paying for locations. You're just kind of stealing locations out in the street or shooting at friends' houses. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, there were like 2 locations in Not So that I got permission for, but I didn't pay for any of them. One of them I paid for in like a favor for a favor type of thing. The location that we shot the final fight in is owned by a guy who owns an arcade and a smoke shop. So I was like, hey, let us shoot there for 12 hours straight this night, and I will make you 2 little commercials that you can post on your Facebook page. So, but yeah, I haven't once in both of those feature films paid for a location, and I don't plan to going forward unless there's like a location that like is absolutely 100% required for the story I'm trying to tell, and there's only one place that I can shoot it at, and they're making me pay for it. So I'm definitely of the mindset of like milk the run and gun thing for as much as you can get until someone stops you.
And what are the next kind of stories you want to tell? Do you want to keep doing more comedies? Do you want to do more dramatic stuff? Do you want to do horror? I don't know what's on your plate, but you don't have to reveal plots too much. But what are you working on right now?
So this year I'm taking just the year off because Not So just destroyed me. But I'm taking that year and writing my next three features, which I already know what they're going to be. I won't announce them here because I'm not ready to do that. But I definitely am trying to transition more into drama. That is like kind of where I want to be. I started with comedy because I love comedies, and I think when you're starting out, it's better to start with a genre that you know for a fact you can do and be taken seriously doing it. Whereas with like if I had made my first movie out of the gate a drama at like age 17, there's a high likelihood of that movie feeling extremely cringy and not at all serious. I don't think people would be able to take it seriously because it's a 17-year-old trying to make a hard-hitting drama. So my plan going forward for the next three features is to for what I'll say is my third feature is going to be a comedy with some pretty hard dramatic elements, and as the movies go on, they're going to become more and more dramatic. So I definitely want to get to the point where I'm making flat out dramas with some slight comedic elements. I do want to eventually, like after that, go back and make some comedies here and there because I don't. Comedies are too important to me to abandon entirely, but dramas is where I want to be overall.
So with these next movies, is this going to be casting your friends and people around your age kind of thing? As you do more dramas, are you going to maybe cast older people that you don't necessarily know already? What's the plan there? Do you want to use a lot of the same people a lot? Are you always looking for fresh faces for these new projects? What are your thoughts there?
I'm pretty much a mix of both, honestly. There are people that I've worked with that I want to work with again, but I also want to add more people into the fold. One other thing I'll say about my third movie is that Nathan is going to be the lead in that. So that's an example of like working with another person. But the cast surrounding him, I'm going to try and find some fresh faces and people in Washington that want to explore acting and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess it's just a project by project basis for me. If I'm making a movie where the characters feel better at an older, more mature age, I'll be looking for that. If it's better for them to be younger, I'll be looking for younger actors. So,
And in general, are you just kind of writing to your locations that you're familiar with on these next projects? Would you ever write something that's maybe takes place somewhere a lot further from your hometown? Do you have a lot of love for your hometown too? Like, is it a place that you're really into, and what's your relation to it there?
I love Yakima. I also dislike it at the exact same time because there's nothing to do here. But I love the visuals of Yakima. I love what it feels like. I love the vibe here. So yeah, I definitely plan for definitely the next three movies are all still going to be in Yakima. But I'm also not writing off the idea of going and shooting something somewhere else also. But yeah, I do, the way I write and the way we wrote Not So is like, we're allowed to like maybe do like 2 or 3 locations that we're not 100% sure we can get just to challenge ourselves a little bit. But for the most part, I put sticky notes on my wall while I'm writing with like, these are the locations that I know I can get, and I try to write around that. I'm a big believer in the famous Orson Welles quote that like, without the absence of limitations, what's that quote? There's it basically that like the absence of limitations creates bad art. Basically, I think limitations can challenge you as an artist a lot and can create a better result because of your limitations. So
Yeah, I think it's the enemy of art is the absence of limitations.
yes,
And I definitely adhere to that as well. With my own stuff, none of my movies would exist without limitations. So anybody that complains about limitations is full of it. You really need something bearing down on you to make anything, to even think in a certain direction of a particular idea. You need something that's forcing you into a direction in some regard. And I feel like you've taken that challenge and done some really interesting stuff where like suddenly, somebody watches one of your movies, they're like, what's going on in Yakima? This is so cool. And maybe I'm watching this and I'm in some other small town and maybe I can do the equivalent of what Caleb's doing in Yakima. Suddenly there could be an explosion of, other filmmakers, understanding, their surroundings and using that as production values to showcase their locations to the entire world, really, through YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I want just more people making movies. I think there's this really weird idea that like at our level all you can really do is little short films and stuff, and I think that's just completely false. I think there's a lot of features that you can do at our level that like and you've talked about this on your podcast that like Hollywood just can't do. And I feel like more people should be leaning into that. I think most people have a camera in their pocket right now that you could go shoot a really compelling feature film on. I mean, I always say if you can, go put a little bit of money into your audio equipment. But outside of that, like you can shoot on a potato and you're still going to, as long as your story is good, you're still going to make something worthwhile. So I wish more people would be doing what we're doing here and what you're doing and what Dan's doing and what the Doomed production guys are doing. I hope this thing blows up even more because it's creating really amazing art.
Yeah, I have my potato right next to me. It's the iPhone 6, and I shot Attack of the Giant Blurry Finger on an iPhone 6, and I think that movie looks damn good. And
Incredible film.
I've gotten a lot of thank you. I've gotten a lot of compliments on that film, and it just goes to show it's how you use it. If I'm using the iPhone 6 like it's an Arri Alexa or like a Red camera or like a 35 millimeter, I'm gonna be crying in the corner. But if I'm using it how it wants to be used, I can create something pretty beautiful. You just kind of have to listen to the camera and what the camera is telling you as far as what it wants to be shooting. What did you shoot Not So Amazing and Living with Trevor on?
I shot both of those films on a Canon T2i. That was my first camera, and I was going to get a different camera for Not So, but I sat on it and I was like, you know what? I don't actually fully have this camera down yet, and so I think I'm going to just shoot Not So on it also, and hopefully by the time I'm done with Not So, have this camera down to a T, and that kind of did happen. Not So was like an experience where me and the Canon T2i became one, and yeah, so I'll probably end up getting something else going forward if I can afford it, because I do want to start shooting movies in 4K. That's just something that I want to do. It's not something I have to do, but I'd like to do it. But yeah, the Canon T2i paired with the kit lens and a 50 millimeter. That's what Not So and Living with Trevor were both shot on.
I'm a big fan of the Canon T2i. I shot Shredder, my first film, on the T2i. I shot its sequel, Strummer, on the T2i. I shot a documentary called Rehearsals on the T2i. I love the T2i. That's a camera I fell in love with pretty much right away.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
There's something about it. It just has a different quality to it than a lot of the other DSLRs. I love how it responds to color. It's very intuitive. You can kind of have this feeling where it's an extension of your body once you spend a little bit of time with it. The image stabilization is quite good for one of those early DSLRs. That was a life-changing camera for me. That's the reason I'm a filmmaker today, is because I picked that camera up. And I hope people listening at home realize this is a camera you can get on eBay right now for like maybe $200.
Yeah.
So you are not far away from your first film by any stretch. If you like any of my stuff, if you like any of Caleb's stuff, that T2i is sitting there on eBay collecting dust, waiting for you to buy it. Wonderful little camera, I would say.
It'll get you a long way. Like, yeah, you can do a lot with that T2i. It's never about the camera, it's about how you use it, and that T2i has a lot of potential that if you tap into it, you can create some really amazing images.
And how do you handle audio? What's your audio setup like for when you're making your movies?
I can't even remember the exact brand name. It was like an off-brand Chinese $30 boom mic that we used paired with a cheap Zoom recorder, but like it actually produced some pretty good
Well,
audio.
nobody would know it. Your films sound great.
Yeah, Living with Trevor was recorded on a phone, and I mean the nitpicky side of me like wishes that I would have just like used my allowance at the time because I was still a teenager on like that $30 mic, but like I'm still very proud of the fact that like Living with Trevor sounds at least competent and it's recorded on a really cheap Android. Yeah, but Not so was on that $30 boom mic, and yeah, I think like you can, as long as you get the mic close enough to your actors, you're gonna get some pretty clean audio.
Yeah, a lot of it is technique for sure. You can, use a $30 boom mic clearly because that movie sounds fine. Nobody would be like, "Oh, I liked it, but the audio was terrible." No, everything is firing on all cylinders. It's fine. There's no weak point as far as the technicality of like how it was made or whatever. It's just technique. It's just about using the camera well, using the boom mic well, which you can learn on YouTube pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's it's not that hard to figure out. A lot of the people helping you out, is it just people that kind of learned it by themselves? Do you have anyone on your crew that's like more experienced? Is everybody just kind of figuring it out as you go? Because in my opinion, I feel like most jobs as far as crew on film, you can kind of learn it in an afternoon or just with a little bit of practice. It's really not that complicated.
Yeah, I feel comfortable saying I think we're all at a fairly similar level. I think we're all learning together still, and God knows I still have stuff to learn. But like, yeah, I think we're all learning together. Some people might be a little ahead of others in terms of skill and stuff, but I think we're all catching up to one another, project to project.
And as far as producing, I know you produce films as well. Are you going to be producing anything else? Anything else coming up that's not your own directorial stuff? Or are you just going to produce your own films?
Well, I'm not against it at all. That's always like when I originally made RC Films, the whole idea was a label for the movies that I direct and also a roof for other filmmakers to put their movies under. So like if someone comes up to me with a script that I think is really good, I'm definitely down to produce other people's movies as well. I want to do my part as part of this community and help as much as I can. I mean, that's how Seventh happened. Micah came to Gage and I with this story that we both thought was incredible, and we were just like, Micah, you need to make this. Like, let's figure out how we can do that like this summer. And then we went and did it, and the movie turned out great. So, yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a transitional period right now with RC Films. A lot of us are going to be going in different directions and doing our own thing, but Nathan and I are staying with RC Films, and we're definitely pursuing some people about potentially continuing that producing other people's movies thing. And yeah, I definitely want to keep doing it.
What do you think you bring to the table as a producer? Like what kind of guidance did you give as far as making Seventh? Because that was a really interesting movie. I enjoyed it a lot, and that's saying a lot because I'm such a stickler for like '90s accuracy as far as like depicting the time period. Like I'm obsessed with the time period I grew up in, and like it was such a better depiction of the '90s than I've seen from pretty much anything else. There's a couple little nitpicks I have with it, but overall it was way more accurate a depiction than something like mid '90s, that came out, that Jonah Hill movie or other stuff that just kind of tries to ape the '90s. This was a very homegrown, I think pretty good depiction of the '90s, I would say. What was your guidance as far as producing that film?
Well, I definitely helped in getting Micah to a place where he was ready to go shoot it, engaged it as well. But to be completely honest, the fact that it was found footage made my job a lot easier. Like there wasn't a lot of like not trusting Micah to get it done. It was a pretty straightforward, like, whoever's holding whatever character's holding the camera at that point, just get everything in frame type of thing. So in terms of my producing, a lot of it was just helping him manage the schedules of every shoot, helping him get locations. I mean, a lot of the locations where Micah's also, like, the house is Micah's house. But it just, I mean, for me, producing on the level that we're at is just being on set and being willing to help in any way possible. And that's kind of what I did with Seventh. I was just there and willing to help with anything Micah needed my help with. I mean, I also forced Micah to watch a couple movies that I thought would influence Seventh in a positive way. I made him watch The Dirties, and that, like, definitely influenced his directing style quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, producing is mostly just helping young upcoming filmmakers have the freedom to go make a movie. So a lot of it is just sitting around waiting to help where needed.
And if the right person came along and was like, hey, I want to produce the next Calob movie, is that something you would be open to, or do you want to produce your own stuff?
Yeah, I actually don't want to produce my own stuff, really. I'm definitely willing to have other people on board if I feel like I'm going to work well with them. For the time being, it's really, like, Nathan is my go-to. He is an incredible producer, and, like, if it wasn't for him, like, I would have had a much harder time on Not So. There were so many shoots where, like, the shoot was about to go off the rails, and Nathan just saved that shoot from derailing completely. That guy's willing to kill himself for whatever movie he's working on, and that's the energy that I like, because I'm the same way. Like, I walk onto a set and I'm willing to, like, completely destroy myself to get the scene. So, I mean, if there's someone who has a similar mindset that I feel like I'm going to work well with and they want to produce one of my movies, I'm definitely down to have them on board.
I'm gonna have to talk to Nathan on here soon. We've talked briefly on Twitter. He's such a sweet guy, very genuine, and I think we'd have a great conversation, me and him. All right, so how we end this show, if you've heard the show before, we always do some stupid questions. Are you ready to be asked some stupid questions?
I was born ready. I'm very excited for this.
All right, first question. Who would win in a fight, Spider-Man or Superman?
Probably Superman. I mean, Superman, one of my problems with Superman as a character is, like, outside of Kryptonite, he's basically just Jesus Christ himself. So I feel like he would just obliterate Spider-Man, unfortunately. As much as I want to say Spider-Man would kick his ass, yeah, I think Superman would probably destroy him.
What if Spider-Man had some sort of, like, weird problem where, like, kryptonite got into his web and he had, like, kryptonite web? What would happen there?
Then I guess the situation would be a little bit different. Yeah, I mean, I guess Batman has kicked Superman's ass before in a similar manner. So I guess if Spider-Man did have access to kryptonite and he was able to like meld it with his webbing, then, like, yeah, I guess the odds would be higher. I'm not sure. I guess, yeah, maybe Spider-Man would win in that scenario.
I just realized there wasn't much web in Not So Amazing. Was that a choice where you're like, man, we can't really pull off the web, or are we just gonna, like, back away from that? What was the choice there?
Well, I mean, considering the framing of our movie is a person in the real world trying to become Spider-Man, it was just the limitations of the real world. We unfortunately at this point in time don't have webbing and web shooters, so I decided to give him a baseball bat instead.
Yeah, baseball bat and web, it's just the next best thing for sure.
It's a very natural evolution.
All right, next stupid question. We see a lot of your butt crack in Not So Amazing. Is that something we can expect going forward in all your next films, or is that just a one-time thing?
So I have made it a thing where, like, I either have to appear in my underwear or I have to show my ass in every movie I make. So there will definitely be some more ass crack in the future.
Is that marching orders from Nathan, or is that something that you're just you're always making sure happens for yourself?
I'm always making sure it happens for myself. Yeah, I have a very juvenile sense of humor, and and butt cracks make me laugh. So whenever it feels fitting to the scene, yeah, I just make it happen.
All right, so fans of your butt crack out there listening, there's gonna be more coming. Just you wait.
Yeah.
Is there ever going to be like an extra butt crack edition, that you put out down the line of any of your early films, or, because you got to cater to the crowd that's out there that's just clamoring for more.
Yeah, I mean, I might be able to scrounge up some extra deleted scenes or something. We'll see. I don't know.
All right. Well, that's good news. It's always good to end on some good news. Calob, it was great talking to you. I really enjoy your films. I'm really looking forward to the next ones coming out. I know you're just going to blow me away like you've been blowing me away with what you've been doing so far.
Well, I appreciate that, and I love your stuff too. I wish I would have been able to talk more about your stuff because I'm a big fan of yours, but yeah, so it means a lot.
Awesome. Thanks for talking, and hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you all for listening, and if you love the show, please support us. $2 per month. KillTheLionFilms.com. You support the show, you support the studio. Just $2 per month. See you soon.